Somewhere in the celestial plane, one of the gods made an absurd mistake and accidentally ended up killing our dear Joe, or rather, Kelvin Celsius. To try to fix this mess, the goddess of reincarnation made a proposal. Kelvin could choose the abilities with which he would be reborn in another world. The only detail, he would lose all memories of his previous life. A fair price for a second chance in a fantasy world. Kelvin wakes up beneath a tree, completely lost, not understanding where he is. But before he even stands up, a floating window in game style appears right in front of him with the message, "Begin your adventure." Curious, he clicks "Start," and that's when the craziness begins. The window begins to move, gains a voice, and starts explaining the situation. It speaks about his reincarnation and teaches him how to access his status. Kelvin opens the attribute screen and discovers that he chose a support style focused on summoning, with rank S summoner spells and absurd experience bonuses. Soon after, as in every good isekai anime, the menu suggests that he go to the nearest Adventurers Guild to register. Happy with his abilities, Kelvin heads toward the guild. On the way, he begins to talk with the menu screen and asks if it will accompany him on this journey. The answer surprises him. That window is actually the goddess of reincarnation herself. Her name is Melfina. And the craziest part? Kelvin's past self apparently fell in love with her before being reincarnated and asked that she be his servant in this new life. Melfina accepted the request as a vacation from her divine duties. Now he'll have to deal with that. Kelvin then asks if he can summon her true body. But Melfina explains that for now he doesn't have enough mana. He will have to train and become much stronger first. But she makes it clear. She is looking forward to hearing him declare his love for her again, when he finally can summon her. That makes Kelvin think, man, this goddess must be absurdly beautiful for me to have said all that before reincarnation. He then arrives at the guild and registers as a green mage, one of the rank F classes. Melfina gives an important warning. It's better that he keep his summoner ability secret. Summoners are so rare that entire kingdoms would be capable of starting wars just to have him on their side. The guild receptionist takes down his data and brings him his adventurer pass. She introduces herself as Ange and explains how the rankings work. Kelvin is at the lowest level, F. He can accept missions up to 1 rank above, and after completing 10 missions, he can rank up. But starting from rank C, exams will be needed to evolve. After the explanation, Kelvin asks which mission she recommends for a novice like him. With Melfina's help, he chooses the mission to defeat 3 blue slimes. He stops by a weapon shop and buys a basic wooden staff imbued with magic. Then, he goes straight to the hunting fields. Upon encountering the slimes, he hides behind a bush. Melfina then reminds him that he can use his rank S skill called Evaluation Eye, which allows him to see the status and abilities of monsters up to 100 levels above him, and even of very rare items. Impressed, Kelvin asks, "How do I make a contract with the slimes?" She answers, "If the monster is common, it's just like Pokemon style. Weaken it and capture it." Excited, he emerges from the bushes and tries a surprise attack, but he gets a solid beating. Slime 1 wipes out Kelvin. He even attempts to auto-attack standing still, but of course it fails. After thinking a bit, he realizes he needs to play with strategy. He deceives the slime, waits for the right moment, and finally lands a heavy blow. With the slime's life low, Kelvin stretches out his hand and forms a contract. The slime accepts, but the ritual consumes half of Kelvin's mana. Even so, mission accomplished. He captures his first Pokemon, or rather, a slime itself, and names it Clotho. Clotho is summoned, and, to everyone's surprise, has a somewhat insane vibe. Loves to fight and get stronger, a true battle addict. Together, Kelvin and Clotho defeat the slimes of the mission. Kelvin notices that Clotho got a lot stronger after the contract. Melfina explains, "That's thanks to the rank S summoner skill, which increases all attributes of summoned monsters by 100 points. She also reveals that currently, he is the only rank S summoner in the world. Others are rank B or C and only gain between 10 to 20 extra points in the monsters they summon. In other words, he is a rare monster." Mission complete, Kelvin returns to town, collects the reward money, and goes looking for an inn to eat and spend the night. On the way, he sees a slave trader with some girls locked in cages. He even thinks whether it would be a good idea to recruit one of them to share XP, but he soon puts that aside and continues toward the lodging recommended by Ange. At the inn, he introduces himself to the owner, Claire, and finally enjoys his first real meal in this new world. Then he rents a room and ends the day. From then on, Kelvin gets into the rhythm, accepts guild missions, levels up rapidly thanks to his accelerated growth ability, and accumulates over 100 skill points in a short time. He learns the concealment skill, which hides his status from curious eyes, and decides to keep training that ability to maintain his identity secret. Meanwhile, Clotho also evolves, learns new techniques, and becomes an even more insane creature. A giant slime glutton, a true battle tank. One day, after completing yet another mission, Kelvin returns to the guild and is greeted with congratulations from Ange. He has just ranked up and is now officially a Rank E adventurer. And now that Kelvin is a Rank E adventurer, he can accept missions up to Rank D. Ange, always helpful, suggests that he upgrade his equipment, since he's still using the same starter staff from his first mission. After all, given how much he has evolved, it's more than time to update, right? Kelvin has been doing all the missions alone, without forming a group, and is ranking up at a speed that leaves everyone in the guild agape, which of course ends up generating gossip and envy from other adventurers. Among these envious ones is Cashel, a Rank D adventurer with strength of Rank B. He is known for being the strongest in the guild. Cashel approaches Kelvin and invites him to go on a group mission to defeat the Black Ghost Knight. But Kelvin is no fool. Using his evaluation eye, he finds out that Cashel's title is Assassin. That already triggers all alarms. He realizes he's about to fall into a trap, but confident in his abilities, he decides to accept the challenge. Only that in his own way, he proposes a contest. Whoever defeats the knight first wins. Before departing, Kelvin buys new gear and heads straight for the castle where the Ghost Knight is. There, he defeats alone all the zombie soldiers in the place, setting up trap spells to receive Cashel and his gang properly. Soon, Cashel arrives accompanied by two comrades, Gimel and Raj, both with bounties on their heads. Kelvin taunts the group until they reveal the plan to assassinate him. The battle begins. Raj falls into a hidden vine trap and takes a blast of wind blades right in the face. Gimel, seeing this, tries to flee, but Clotho is summoned and chases him. A tentacle slap is enough to knock out the coward. Then Clotho also captures and defeats Raj. Meanwhile, Cashel tries to attack Kelvin directly, but fails miserably. Kelvin gives him a proper beatdown. After finishing Cashel's crew, Kelvin goes into the main room of the castle to face the Black Ghost Knight. To his surprise, the knight isn't that scary. Actually, he's a calm old man who introduces himself as Gerard, former captain of the royal guard of his old kingdom. After his kingdom's fall, he was consumed by hatred and transformed into a monster. Kelvin and Gerard end up having a serious talk. Using the evaluation eye, Kelvin discovers Gerard is a level 52 knight, full of absurd skills and stats. He proposes a summoning contract and Gerard accepts under one condition. Kelvin must prove his strength. The duel begins. Kelvin uses various restraining spells to immobilize Gerard and create openings for Clotho to attack. But the knight is too experienced. He blocks and dodges everything with impressive calm. The fight continues intensely, with attacks exchanged evenly. During the battle, Gerard's dormant memories awaken. He remembers that the one responsible for the destruction of his kingdom was an elf named Geldora, the same one who killed his family. He became a monster out of vengeance. Now he asks Kelvin to help him in that mission of revenge. Gerard unleashes a powerful energy slash, and Kelvin responds respectfully. He uses air pressure to immobilize him, and lets Clotho finish with an energy bolt. Mission accomplished. Kelvin returns to the guild, brings a fragment of Gerard's armor as proof, and impresses everyone. The mission, considered well above level D, grants him a special promotion. Now Kelvin is officially a Rank D adventurer. Meanwhile, Cashel and his henchmen are imprisoned and thrown into a cell. The guard announces they must reflect on their crimes and await the death sentence. Later, Kelvin strolls through the guild, and we see that Gerard is now part of his summoning team, talking with him, with Melfina, and with Clotho. During that walk, Kelvin crosses paths with Leo, the master of the Adventurers Guild of Parth. Leo asks if he is from another world, and, using his own version of Evaluation Eye, manages to see Kelvin's stats, even with concealment activated. Leo is clearly stronger. They talk in Leo's office. He reveals that he's met other people from different worlds before, like the heroes of Durames. The kingdom's high priestess had a vision that the Demon King is about to reappear. Because of this, Leo proposes an alliance with Kelvin, since he's a rare summoner like the heroes of old, and asks for his help in protecting the city. In return, he promises to help him rise in rank more quickly. Kelvin accepts the offer, and the two become allies. Back at the inn, Claire congratulates him for reaching rank B and offers a special lunch. Kelvin takes the sandwiches to his room and asks Melfina about the heroes of Durames. She explains that a year ago, she reincarnated 4 people to become the heroes of that kingdom. All were chosen based on looks and knowledge. Kelvin chuckles internally. He then summons Clotho, who also serves as a walking backpack because of his gluttony skill, and grabs a coin pouch. He informs Gerard that he's heading to the slave market. Yes, he plans to buy a slave, but not out of cruelty. He wants to strengthen his backline with more allies. Upon arriving at the market, he sees an elf girl he had taken note of days earlier. The merchant explains that no one wants to buy her because she's cursed. Anyone who touches her catches fire. Curious, Kelvin uses his evaluation eye and confirms it. The girl is under the curse of the Fire Dragon King. He asks Melfina how to break the curse. She responds that there's only one way, to cast the rank S holy spell known as Divine Blessing. Without hesitation, Kelvin goes to train, spends all his remaining skill points, and learns the powerful Sacred Blast spell. Then he returns to the market and buys the elf. She reveals her name, Ephil. Kelvin introduces himself with a smile. In a calm and powerful gesture, he breaks the curse that had imprisoned Ephil for so long. Overwhelmed, she cries in gratitude for finally being free and for someone having shown her kindness. They return together to the inn, where Claire warmly welcomes Ephil and takes care of her. Kelvin helps however he can. He also assists Ephil in distributing her skill points, but makes it clear that she should make her own decisions. After all, she needs to grow as an adventurer. He just wants to guide her, not control her. Later, Kelvin asks Claire for another room, or at least a separate bed for Ephil, but Claire says the inn is full. Result, the two will have to share a bed. Kelvin, of course, finds Ephil beautiful. It's impossible to ignore, but he simply can't sleep well with her beside him. A month passes like this. Kelvin keeps accepting missions as usual, always bringing Ephil along. In that time, she evolves a lot, developing a unique combat style that blends bows and arrows with the blessing of the Fire Dragon King. Meanwhile, Ephil becomes friends with Ange at the guild, and even invites her to a new place she discovered that serves amazing cakes. The next day, Kelvin is surprised to see Ephil in casual clothes and compliments her look. Melfina, for her part, took the day to deliver a divine prophecy to the High Priestess of the Kingdom of Durames. Meanwhile, Kelvin, Ephil, and Ange order several cakes and enjoy what seems to be a peaceful date. But of course, not everything can be peaceful. The third prince of the Kingdom of Tristan, Tabira, is in town and gets annoyed seeing Kelvin enjoying himself with 2 beautiful girls. One of the prince's guards shows up and kicks their table, demanding that Kelvin kneel before nobility. Tabira orders that the girls be arrested too, because, well, he likes them. Kelvin gets up and, without a second thought, knocks out both guards with a single air pressure attack. He forces Tabira to kneel and asks, "What's his deal?" The prince confesses that he's considered a failure by his own royal family and came to Parth after hearing rumors of a powerful adventurer. His plan was to hire this warrior to earn respect. Kelvin reveals that he is the adventurer in question and turns down the offer without blinking. Meanwhile, in Durames, Melfina warns the High Priestess to send the 4 heroes to another continent, far away from Parth. Later that night, Ephil confesses her feelings to Kelvin. She thanks him for everything he's done for her and says she loves him. Kelvin is completely flustered. He also feels something for her but holds back. He still sees her as a slave and believes that getting involved with her now would be taking advantage of the situation. He decides he needs to buy a house and give Ephil her own room. The next day, Melfina returns from Durames and shares the hero's status with Kelvin. The conclusion is unanimous. The group is weak and far below expectations. They're all around level 50. Melfina is concerned they won't be able to handle the Demon King's return. Kelvin agrees, and, to lighten the mood, brags about the new weapons he forged with his blacksmithing skills. Gerard, of course, doesn't miss the chance to tease him, saying he only got good results after failing 1 billion times and making a ton of scrap metal. At that moment, Claire knocks on the door. The guild is calling for Kelvin. Leo welcomes him and explains that a demon was found sealed in a secret room of the rank D dungeon called Hermit's Hollow. It hasn't been assessed yet, but it could be an A-level threat. And guess what? No one strong enough is available to investigate. Leo even jokes that he heard about a troublemaker who assaulted a prince and that this could turn into a diplomatic incident. He's having a hard time calming things down. Then he asks if Kelvin will take the mission. Kelvin accepts, albeit reluctantly, and internally calls Leo a true demon. Kelvin, Ephil, Gerard, and Clotho head to the dungeon. Upon entering the secret room, they find 2 demons. One introduces himself as Victor, the archdemon. The other is sealed. It's Sarah, daughter of the last Demon King. Victor reveals that only a human can break the seal. And guess what? He wants them to do it so he can absorb Sarah's powers and become the new Demon King. The battle begins. Kelvin is thrilled. Finally, a truly strong enemy. Melfina reveals that Kelvin is, deep down, a battle addict, a real fight maniac who idolizes Goku. Victor summons an army of undead, but Gerard, Clotho, and Eiffel take them down with ease. Pressured by their teamwork, Victor casts a stealth spell and tries to strike Kelvin by surprise, but the plan fails. Kelvin senses the magic and dodges at the last second. Victor then goes for a direct assault, fights Gerard, and dominates for a while. He then focuses on Kelvin with quick strikes, aiming for his head. Kelvin calls Clotho, who latches onto one of Victor's arms and starts draining his mana. Victor tries to use his other arm, but Kelvin seals it with magic. Eiffel takes the chance and fires a flaming arrow. Victor blocks it, but loses his arm in the process. Gerard takes the opening and slices off the other arm too. Cornered, Victor activates his combat form and charges at Kelvin with everything he has. Gerard intercepts and begins a brute force duel with the demon. Meanwhile, Eiffel supports from a distance, firing wind arrows non-stop. Kelvin summons Clotho and literally makes it rain all the failed weapons he created during training. After that, he, Gerard, and Sarah channel their attacks and launch everything at Victor. The explosion is so strong that the ceiling collapses right on top of Sarah. In a final act of protection, Victor throws himself in front of her, holding up a huge piece of the ceiling that would have crushed her. Wounded, Victor falls and confesses the truth. He wasn't Sarah's enemy. In fact, he was always the only friend and mentor she had. When the former Demon King was defeated, he sealed Sarah and left her in Victor's care, trusting him to protect her. Since then, Victor had been searching for humans kind enough to treat Sarah with dignity and strong enough to defend her. With what little strength he has left, Victor begs Kelvin, "Take Sarah with you. Show her the world she's never seen." Touched by the request, Kelvin agrees. When Sarah wakes up and understands what happened, she cries non-stop over Victor. Kelvin takes her to the city and presents her as a victim of the battle with Victor, hiding her true origin. Gerard, in turn, evolves into an Abyssal Commander Knight, an S-rank monster. Sarah still feels insecure, afraid that someone might discover her true identity, but Kelvin reassures her. With his rank S concealment skill, no one will be able to sense her demonic origin. In the city, Sarah experiences freedom for the first time. She window shops, explores alleys, and marvels at simple things. Before, she was just a sheltered child, too protected to see the world. Now she's finally living. Meanwhile, Kelvin is promoted to rank A adventurer. The guild throws a surprise party at the inn, and during the celebration, he finds out that Claire is married to Erd, another guild adventurer. Sarah feels a bit out of place in the crowd, still thinking about Victor, but after recalling some memories, she fills with determination. She'll honor the gift Victor gave her: freedom. The next day, Kelvin forges a new demon sword for Gerard and creates a pair of gauntlets using parts of Victor's armor for Sarah. After that, a sudden hunger hits him. He says he's dying for some rice. Eiffel looks at him, puzzled. What's rice? They discover that rice is only found in the coastal city of Torog, so they head there. On the way, the wagon they're in is attacked by a group of bandits called Black Wind. Kelvin evaluates their stats, all around level 30, and decides to let Sarah handle it as training. Sarah calmly steps forward and defeats all the bandits with no effort. She then ties them up and interrogates them. The leader reveals that their true boss is a level 70 warrior. That piques Kelvin's interest, and he decides to personally pay this boss a visit. Upon arriving in Toraj, Sarah sees the sea for the first time. She remembers Victor's promise that he would one day teach her to swim. Kelvin promises to fulfill that for her, but first, they need to go to the local guild and turn in the captured bandits. At the Toraj Guild, they meet the guild master Mist, a former adventurer who used to be Leo's companion. She says she's heard a lot about Kelvin. He shares information about the leader of Black Wind, revealing it's none other than Kristoff, Trion's champion, sent to expand the slave market. The problem? The guild has no solid evidence against him. Kelvin then suggests Mist ask the heroes of Durames for help, who happen to be in the city. Mist agrees and sends the mission to the group. The heroic knight Toya accepts the request. Meanwhile, Kelvin devises his own plan. At the bandits' hideout, there's a room full of kidnapped women. A brute barges in and tries to grab one of them. But who shows up? Kelvin, striking a true hero's pose. And before the thug can process what's happening, Gerard appears out of nowhere and, wham, knocks the guy out. Elsewhere, Kristoff and his goons are complaining about losing one of their squads. The meeting has barely started when there's a knock on the door. It's Kelvin's party barging in uninvited. Kristoff tries to act like he's avenging his fallen comrades, but Kelvin's not there for banter. He quickly cuts the conversation. He's saving his energy for the main event. Soon after, the actual heroes arrive at the hideout. They're surprised it's empty until they come face to face with Clotho. They're about to attack, but one of the freed women steps in and says the slime is protected by their savior. That's when everyone introduces themselves. They're the heroes of Durams. Upon hearing that, the women breathe a sigh of relief. To make things even better, one of the heroes is also a summoner and manages to communicate with Clotho, who explains he stayed behind to protect everyone. One of the women pleads, "Go help Kelvin with the bandits!" The heroes rush through the hideout and find Kristoff and his lieutenants already down for the count. They assume the adventurers were the ones who rescued the women. Meanwhile, Kelvin and his party pretend to be bandits. And that's when the most unexpected meeting happens. The four Empire heroes, Toya, Setsuna, Muzoka, and Miyabi, appear. Kelvin, with that mischievous grin, provokes them all and issues a challenge. He'll fight all of them alone, and the losers have to obey one order from the winner. Toya is outraged. This is dishonorable. But Setsuna gives the group a reality check and convinces them to accept. They agree to the challenge, but Kelvin's real goal is to use his victory to force them to testify against Kristoff, who's protected in Trissan. Gerard even comments that his master is such a battle junkie, he pretended to be a bandit just to pick a fight with the heroes, and Eiffel, concerned, warns him not to underestimate them. They might be lower level, but they're not weak. Kelvin, of course, ignores that and is eager to test his new Skill Eater gloves. The battle begins with the heroes summoning their spirits for a power boost. Toya charges in, but Kelvin responds with a spell right away. While they defend, Kelvin dashes straight at Muzoka. She summons her dragon to unleash fire, but Kelvin activates his insane speed and easily dodges, appearing behind Miyabi. That's when he reveals the gloves. He steals Miyabi's unique skill, parallel processing. Sarah quickly explains, each glove can copy one skill. And on top of that, she lent Kelvin a rank S skill to use as well. Toya tries to save Miyabi, but Kelvin dodges his sword strikes like it's basic training. Setsuna and Muzoka rush to heal their friend, while Toya insists on fighting hand-to-hand. The problem is Kelvin is using Sarah's skill, and he beats Toya down effortlessly. Setsuna jumps in to help, but Kelvin raises a massive wall. She, with her skill to cut through anything, shatters the barrier in a single strike. But Kelvin was waiting for that. He launches a massive fireball. Toya jumps in to block it and nearly becomes barbecue. Muzoka tries to heal him, but Toya says he's fine, nothing if he ever wants to defeat the Demon King. Then he gets slapped by Setsuna. "You idiot! Stop sacrificing yourself and trust your team!" Miyabi and Muzoka back her up, and Toya apologizes, promising to fight together with everyone. As the fight heats up again, a spirit explodes in blinding light. Kelvin is frozen by Muzoka's ice magic, and then crushed by Miyabi's gravity. Immobilized, he watches Toya and Setsuna charge in, but counters with a magical detonation, a massive explosion around him. Toya and Setsuna survive, protected by their spirits, but when the smoke clears, Kelvin is standing there clapping sarcastically. He scolds them, calling their attack amateurish, and even gives them tips, like a grumpy wrestling coach. And just to rub it in, he provokes Toya about hiding his unique skill. Cornered, Toya reveals his true sword. It splits in two. He's a dual wielder. Now the group charges together. Muzoka activates her ultimate spell, Frozen Temple, raising a giant ice pillar that traps Kelvin completely. Miyabi summons her strongest monster over Saratan's grave. Sarah offers to help, but Kelvin refuses. "No, leave this to me." Miyabi fires a devastating dark spell, but Kelvin summons some golems to absorb the impact. He orders them to hold out for 30 seconds and starts crafting a new spell. Normally it would take days, but thanks to parallel processing, he speeds it up. Muzoka warns the others of the danger. Setsuna cuts down the golems easily, but it's too late. Kelvin finishes the spell and fires a devastating energy blast that destroys all the ice, freeing himself amid the magical storm. Setsuna rushes him, sword ready, but he's faster and lands a clean hit to her stomach. Without missing a beat, he dodges the ogre's attacks like they're nothing and knocks out Miyabi with ease. Muzoka tries to counter from atop her dragon, but Kelvin knocks her from the sky with a simple spell. Who comes to save Toya? Of course Miyabi, who catches her partner and goes berserk. She charges wildly at Kelvin, but is knocked out with a single punch. When Toya opens his eyes, he's lying next to the rest of his team. And the scene couldn't be more awkward. One of the younger slave girls is sitting on Kelvin's lap next to Clotho. Toya, furious, demands that he let her go, but Kelvin tells him to look closer. Toya realizes the girl is there because she wants to be, not because she was forced. In fact, Kelvin was the adventurer who saved everyone. Toya's brain short-circuits. Then why didn't you explain that from the start? But he remembers the tips Kelvin gave during the fight, all designed to help them grow stronger. In the end, Toya lowers his guard, admits defeat, and thanks him, calling Kelvin master. That's when Kelvin reminds them. They promise to obey any order from the winner. Toya takes a deep breath, bracing for the worst. But nothing could have prepared him. Kelvin tells them to strip. The tension freezes. All four turn red with embarrassment, but they have no choice. Shortly after, Kelvin hands Kristoff over to the authorities and the rescued slaves to Mist, who thanks him for the excellent job. Then he makes everyone change into swimsuits and takes them to a seaside cave. Yes, this is one of those obligatory beach episodes. There, the heroes find themselves fighting a giant octopus. Its skin is too slippery to cut, and they seriously struggle. Kelvin, arms crossed, watches from the side and gives tips in a grumpy teacher voice. Faster! Pay attention! That's not how you cut! After a ton of effort, the team defeats the octopus. Then it's time for lunch. Kelvin, unimpressed, comments that if they struggled against an octopus, then against a dungeon boss or the Demon King, forget it. And he asks the key question, what would you do if you encountered a monster you couldn't beat? Meanwhile, Sarah casually strolls over, dragging the dungeon boss, a dragon, like a river fish. Toya answers seriously, if we can't win, we'd train more, prepare, and try again, stronger. Kelvin likes the answer and decides to take care of the dragon himself. After that, the heroes depart for the western continent. Kelvin even gives them pendants as parting gifts and watches their ship sail away. Curious, he asks Gerard about that continent and learns that it's home to the elves who destroyed Gerard's old kingdom. Kelvin nudges him. Are you strong enough now to get revenge? Gerard gets emotional at the memory and says yes. Maybe it's possible. But Sarah interrupts. The Queen of Torrid has just summoned the group. They go to the castle, which Kelvin finds oddly Japanese in architecture. Gerard notes that the first king of Torrid was also from another world. On the throne, they meet the queen, who thanks them for resolving the bandit issue and defeating the dragon. She offers rewards, but Kelvin only asks for rice. That's right, rice. The queen laughs but grants him a lifetime supply. During the banquet, Kelvin devours his food while the others glance sideways, half shocked at his obsession. Days later, Kelvin is still staying at the castle at the queen's request, and Aphil shows up bringing lunch, now a pro at Japanese cooking. The queen joins them, compliments the food, and even tries to convince Kelvin to stay with her. He declines, so she tries a different move. How about you stay and take care of me personally? Kelvin cuts her off immediately and says it's time to head back to Parth. Not long after, the queen grants them access to the teleport gate. Back in the city, Kelvin buys a new house for the party and hires 2 of the freed slaves and one of their daughters, Luca, to help around the house. But on the first night, Kelvin can hardly sleep. He feels something. It's Melfina. She announces she can now be fully summoned and promises, I'll win your heart. Kelvin performs the summoning. She appears in her angelic form. He gets nervous, remembering how he fell for her at first sight in his past life. Melfina introduces herself to everyone and even boldly declares herself Kelvin's first wife, just to stir the pot. As a gift for the summoning, she draws a red flower and blesses Kelvin with the power of the goddess of reincarnation. The gift has 2 effects. First, protection from any lethal attack once a month. Sarah immediately gets excited to test that during training. The second effect is the ability to summon heroes. Sarah and Melfina immediately start to duel. Sarah morphs her arm into a demonic claw. Melfina counters with a divine spear. The 2 weapons destroy each other, and the match ends in a draw. Gerard, confused, asks, why so serious? The answer, they were fighting for the right to sleep with Kelvin. He's left speechless. Later, Melfina surprises Kelvin with chocolates. Deep in thought, he opens up. He's worried about summoning heroes, afraid of bringing someone against their will. She explains why they're necessary. All Demon Kings have 2 special abilities, one that drives people insane, and another that makes them invulnerable to any damage. But heroes are the exception. They come from another world, use entirely different magic, and are the only ones who can kill a Demon King. Still, Kelvin feels guilty. What if I'm kidnapping someone? Melfina calmly suggests another idea. Summon people who've already died. That way it's not kidnapping, it's a second chance. Kelvin feels relieved by the solution and even asks if he can choose who to summon. The goddess throws cold water on that idea. It's random, and there's no need to rush. But being Kelvin, he decides to do it that same night. He casts the spell, burns through all his mana, and asks for the strongest hero possible. A bolt of lightning strikes, and a little girl appears. Ryan. Kelvin introduces himself, and though still dazed, she thanks him for reincarnating her. 2 seconds later, she faints. Kelvin wonders if she's really a hero, but Melfina assures him she's the best one. He passes out shortly after, drained of all energy. When Ryan wakes up, we learn she had a terminal illness in her previous life. Outside, she chats with Kelvin, who shares his own reincarnation story. Grateful for her healthy new body, Ryan asks to join the party as a way to repay him. Kelvin agrees, but asks her to pretend to be his younger half-sister, since black hair is rare in that world. Ryan loves the idea and gets excited about finally having an older brother. But her name reminds Kelvin too much of Guildmaster Leo, so she changes it to Ryan. That same night, Kelvin wakes up to find Sarah sneaking into his bed. Before he can react, he notices Melfina is already there, hiding under the blanket. And to top it off, Ryan also slipped in unnoticed. Kelvin takes a deep breath, stares at the ceiling and thinks, "This is my life now." The next day, he takes Ryan to a dungeon. She asks why they were brought along, and Kelvin explains it's to gain levels and get stronger. Luca is terrified of monsters, but he reassures her, "Relax, you're not fighting. I've got the XP share skill. Just hang back while we wipe everything out." It doesn't take long before the first monster appears, a shadow wolf. Kelvin immobilizes it easily with magic and tames it as a pet for Ryan. Suddenly, Aoife warns that Old's party is approaching. They're here to hunt monsters as part of their promotion exam to rank B. Kelvin introduces the new members, and the guys can't help but feel jealous of how many girls are in his party before slinking away looking defeated. Soon after, Sarah and Gerard return and ask what Old's group was doing there. Kelvin explains, and Sarah gets annoyed. They already wiped out all the dungeon's monsters. Aphil confirms using her Farside skill. The dungeon is clean. Kelvin apologizes to Old, but instead of complaining, the guy is in awe of Kelvin's strength, and excited because Kelvin is about to take the Rank S promotion exam. This surprises Kelvin, who finds out Leo entered his name without telling him. Later, the wolf takes a bath, and Ryan reveals she named him Alex. Thanks to a special skill, she can understand what he says. In the following weeks, Ryan trains with the group and bonds deeply with Alex. Until one night, Sarah senses intruders, 14 in total. Kelvin uses Aoife's Farside and sees they're only level 20. He decides to turn it into a test for Ryan. She hesitates but agrees. Kelvin sends a fragment of Clotho with her and gives her a new mithril sword. The enemies? Former allies of Kristoff, out for revenge. Ryan faces them, nervous at first, but ends up defeating them all by herself. Overjoyed with her first victory, she celebrates while Sarah cleans up the mess. Kelvin captures the intruders' leader and closes the mission. Meanwhile, in the kingdom of Tristan, Emperor Z meets with his generals, Prince Asgrad, Prince Tristan, General Dan, and Princess Chutola. It's revealed that Kristoff was abducting slaves under Tristan's orders. The Emperor is disappointed in the failure and worried it could spark war with the neighboring kingdoms, Gorn, Thorg, and Doremus, which are growing closer in alliance. Tristan doesn't care and suggests war, believing Tristan is the strongest. Asgrad agrees, eager to test his new pets. On the other side, Dan and Chutola vote against it, warning it's dangerous to underestimate their neighbors. With the vote tied, the Emperor leaves the final decision to the 5th General. A soldier named Clive is sent to notify him at the Order of the Magic Knights, but the place already gives off bad vibes. Several women are frozen on the floor. In the back, Clive appears, complaining about being called again, and so, the path to war begins. Meanwhile, Kelvin learns from Leo that Tristan is growing more aggressive toward the Kingdom of Gorn. Coincidence? Leo assigns Kelvin's Rank S promotion mission, a direct request from the King of Gorn: kill an S-rank monster terrorizing an elven village. The party heads to the location, already suspecting Tristan's involvement. On the way, their carriage is intercepted by a group of elves. Kelvin calmly explains they're there on the king's orders. The tribal chief, Neelis, arrives to settle the misunderstanding. but freezes when he sees Eiffel. He mistakes her for his daughter Lumel, but quickly realizes the truth. Curious, Kelvin asks about the story. Nellis shares that 20 years ago, their village was attacked by the Flame Dragon King. To save her people, Lumel offered herself as a sacrifice and became the monster's wife. Years later, they found her body in the forest. Afraid the dragon would return, the elves fled to Gorn. Sarah theorizes that Eiffel might be Lumel's daughter with the dragon, but Melfina shoots that down. Elves and dragons can't reproduce. The father was likely human. Eiffel just smiles and says it doesn't matter who her parents were. She already has the family she needs. Back to the mission, Nellis reveals the village was attacked 3 times and several elves were kidnapped. Kelvin finds it strange that monsters would go around abducting people, so he devises a plan. He raises a stone wall around the entire village. Soon, a squad of Tristan soldiers riding monsters shows up, bragging about their strength. But out of nowhere, they start dropping, not even knowing where the shots are coming from. Total panic. The culprit? Eiffel, sniping from the top of a tower with her insanely long-range magic bow. One soldier runs to the commander, reporting that they're being wiped out by unknown adventurers. Melfina and Ryan show up, and the commander gets desperate, calling out the strongest monster in the unit, the Gigant Lord, a colossal S-rank giant. The beast awakens, and Melfina sees the perfect opportunity. She lets Ryan handle it alone to prove her worth. The girl runs up the giant's arm, but her sword breaks on the first hit. She's thrown far away, but doesn't give up. Determined, she summons Clotho and draws 3 new swords. With Alex the dog, she combines their attacks into a wild new fighting style, triple wielding. The giant falls, but the commander orders it to reveal its true form. The monster bursts into flames, becoming even more terrifying. Sarah is frustrated she didn't get to fight, but Kelvin has full confidence in Ryan, and she shows nerves of steel. She attacks again with her triple sword technique and finishes the monster. Melfina cheers as the commander collapses in defeat, but there's no time to relax. From a distance, Kelvin and Eiffel are suddenly hit by an energy blast. Kelvin blocks it by reflex. And who appears? General Clive. Kelvin immediately senses it. A powerful enemy is here. He even gets excited. Clive, not subtle at all, instantly shows interest in Eiffel and tries to hypnotize her to turn her into a slave. Kelvin shuts that down instantly. Using his analysis skill, he discovers that Clive has a unique ability, a clear sign he's also from another world. Clive is surprised to run into another isekai. Kelvin tells Eiffel to fall back. She cloaks herself and returns to the village. Kelvin then transforms the tower they were on into 4 flying obsidian blades and launches them at Clive, but Clive raises his spiral barrier and repels them all. Clive's knights attack from behind, but Kelvin notices they're all under hypnosis. Clive boasts about his numerical advantage, but Eiffel reappears from afar, sniping right through his defenses. Kelvin seizes the moment and summons 4 golems, hands them the blades, and orders them to hold off the knights. Now it's a one-on-one. Clive summons his staff and charges at Kelvin. The two fly through the sky, exchanging magical blasts. Clive unleashes a barrage of attacks. Kelvin dodges, but the explosions hit Clive's own soldiers. Kelvin warns him, but Clive laughs, saying they're replaceable. The chase ends and the two clash directly. The impact is brutal. Kelvin's staff shatters and Clive ends up with a nasty cut across his face. Clive loses it when he realizes he's been scarred. Consumed by rage, he vows to crush Kelvin with his most powerful spell, an S-rank spell that summons a deadly vortex, pulling everything in. Chaos erupts, but Kelvin doesn't flinch. He raises his new staff, the legendary Black Disaster, and channels all his energy into it. In an instant, it transforms into a colossal scythe. He charges through the eye of the storm and slashes Clive from top to bottom, tearing through the spell, and as a bonus, slices off both of Clive's legs. Before Kelvin can land the finishing blow, Clive escapes via teleportation, rescued by none other than General Tristan. Tristan confirms he was behind the attacks on the elf village and vanishes, leaving Kelvin frustrated by the anticlimactic end to their fight. Back at the village, the elves erupt in celebration. Meanwhile, Melfina, Sarah, and Ryan race to Kelvin to see who'll get his praise first. In the middle of the contest, Ryan creates a new skill and snags the win. Kelvin congratulates her for defeating the giant, while the other two grumble about their loss. In Tristan, Clive wakes up in chains. His legs have already been healed, but at a steep price. Tristan has his own slaves torture him while running experiments. After all, Clive is an isekai too, and valuable as a test subject. Back in the village, the elves throw a party, but Kelvin prefers to watch from a distance. Eiffel approaches and he opens up. He feels lucky to have such an amazing group by his side and promises to grow even stronger to protect them. Eiffel is touched, especially since she's learned more about her mother and received a hair ornament that once belonged to her, gifted by Nellis. Kelvin helps fasten it, and soon the rest of the party joins them for the peaceful scene. That's when a young elf approaches Kelvin, thanks him for his protection, and, out of nowhere, reveals her true identity. She's the King of Gorn, disguised with a special item. The king congratulates Kelvin and announces that he's officially passed the rank S promotion. The party erupts in celebration, but the king adds one more detail. The promotion ceremony includes an exhibition match against other rank S adventurers. Upon hearing that, Kelvin can't hide his smile. Of course, the thought of fighting strong opponents has him thrilled. His companions aren't even surprised anymore by his obsession with battles. And so, the party moves forward toward new adventures. But that's where this chapter of the story ends. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell, because there's more coming soon.